Okay, so this is the scientific graphing tutorial. It's kind of a step-by-step that you can follow that's going to teach you how to do good scientific graphs. Now, you should have with you your ruler, you should have your graph paper, and you should have your pencil. We're always using pencils when we're making scientific graphs. You'll note today that I'm going to be using a black marker, and that's simply so that you can be able to see what's going on. As we go through this video, it is a tutorial, it is a step-by-step, so you should be doing this with me, the problem as well. And if I'm going too fast, you need to pause the video and you need to catch up, and then unpause the video as I continue. Okay? So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our rulers. We always use our rulers to make a straight edge. And we are going to make our X and our Y axis. Okay, great. So we show something like that. Now we're going to be graphing this data here, which is the water temperature versus the number of developing clams. So you want to make sure you have this out in front of you. This is the data that we're going to be looking at. Okay? Our x-axis has water temperature on it. So it looks to me, if I take a look at this data, this is going to be our x-axis. We need to be going from about 0, and I'm going to go up to about 60 because I need to be able to extrapolate my data, which means go beyond, so I have to go beyond 50. So if I take a look at my data here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go every 2 blocks counts as 5 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to start over here to the left. I'm going to mark this first one as 0, and then every 2 blocks is 5 degrees. As we talked about before, we don't need to number, and we should not number every single place. So in this case, we're going to skip the 5 and simply number the 10. We're going to skip the 15, and we're going to number the 20. Skip the 25, number the 30, 40, 50, and 60. Okay? We now need to write down and label our x-axis. And when we label the x-axis, we can simply use water temperature, but we have to make sure that we also include our units, degrees Celsius. So in the bottom here, I'm going to write down water temperature in degrees Celsius. Okay? We're going to do something similar with our y-axis. Our y-axis is going to be the number of developing clams. And to me, it looks like we need to go from about 0 to over 140. I'm going to take it all the way up to 160. Okay? So again, I'm going to start at 0 on my y-axis. So I'm going to put a mark, and I'm going to write down 0. And I'm going to go, every block counts as 10. So this would be 10, 20. And again, I'm not going to number every single tick mark. I'm only going to number the tick marks every other, so it doesn't get as cluttered. Okay, there we go. We need to put a label on our y-axis, so I'm simply going to turn my paper here to make it a little bit easier to put this label on. It's just going to be number of developing clams. Okay, we're now ready to graph our data. So once again, when we're looking at this, this is our x, this is our y coordinate. You guys have done lots of graphing before. I'm sure you should be able to do this pretty fine. All right, now with our data plotted, it's time to add a trend line. And if you remember about trend lines, we could either use a linear, which means straight, or nonlinear, which means curved. And right now, I think our data looks more like a curved trend line. So the other thing that's important about trend lines is they do not have to touch all of the dots. They don't have to connect them. We're not playing connect the dots here. So I'm simply going to draw a smooth line. In this case, it's going to be curved, that does the best job at representing what the data shows. Again, it does not have to touch all of the dots. Okay. Now when I go beyond my data, for example, when I go over here and when I go over here, I'm going to add a trend line that looks like it should continue, and I'm going to make it dotted. Something like that. The final thing we need for all good graphs is a title. And a great way to write titles is saying something along the lines of the effect of the X on the Y, or the effect of water temperature on the number of developing clams. Okay, great. So this is what our graph, this is what your graph should look like now. And if we had more than one set of data, we would also include a key on the right side here so we could tell the difference between our sets of data. In this case, we only had one set of data. Your next task now is to look at these questions that are below and to answer those questions by looking at your graph.